It's been a little while, but we are here talking about the Abattoir of Zir. We just got the update live stream kind of finished, but it was all about the new end game content coming next week and a little hint of what we expect to see in future seasons and just a tiny bit about the new event coming. So let's go ahead and go through some of the notes I have and actually showcase the live gameplay that they've done for the Abattoir of Zir during the live stream. First off, they talked about the Diablo 4 pay to win kind of, I guess you say, drama going on around the community right now. And they explicitly stated, no, there's not going to be any pay for power, pay to win, anything like that. And they've continuously stated this over the course of the lifespan of the game. So anything that might seem pay to win or pay for power, it looks like they're going to actively avoid that or actively change that. So keep that in mind. But they also mentioned, like, that's why we're adding more stash space and stuff. It's like, that was like the worst example they possibly could have given. They're like, here, Diablo 4 is not pay to win. Look, we added a stash tab. Like, that's literally what they said. I was like, oh, you probably don't want to go that direction because that is not something that people are happy about right now. But then they dove into a little bit of the Midwinter Blight, which is the new Christmas event or winter event that's coming December 12th through January 2nd in Kyovashad. That's where you're going to fight the Red Cloaked Horror, as it's called, and his minions. Pretty simplistic event. We didn't really get any new information from what we saw at BlizzCon, so honestly, not really that big of a difference. And, well, it's just going to be probably a little bit more of a casual event where you're going to earn those cosmetics, as they said, as you go ahead and participate in some of the events in Kyovashad. But here is where the live stream, in my opinion, really started. That's when they started showcasing the Abattoir of Zir and talking about it. Now, some of the notes I've written down, but I'll actually show some of the gameplay afterwards, is it's a seasonal event and you have to finish the season journey to actually participate. You have 0 lives, which means you don't have any like additional lives to go ahead and, you know, maybe die in the Abattoir of Zir and then revive and continue going. It's not like your Nightmare Dungeons, okay? And then it's going to be Greater Rift style. What I mean by that is you kill enemies for a certain amount of time, and then if you are too slow, then you'll lose the overall fight. It's looks to be a 10-minute timer, so you have to kill enough enemies to kind of gather essence, and then you'll end up summoning the monster. It's not actually so like gathering essences, but you just have to kill monsters, and then eventually you'll summon the boss, and then that boss is what you have to defeat before the timer runs out. It is pretty much exactly Greater Rifts from Diablo 3. The only difference is you don't have to pick up the orbs, I guess, from Diablo 3, but expect it to be pretty much the exact same thing. So that is pretty interesting. It's as if it was Nightmare Dungeon 104 is what they said. That is the comparable difficulty, at least for tier 1. The bosses are, 3 bosses, and they're all blood seekers. It looks like for every single tier. It just gets, exponentially harder. They have the new Tears of Blood glyph. This is a multiplicative bonus glyph, and it's going to be the key on how you actually access the higher tiers of the Abattoir of Zir in terms of difficulty, right? You're going to need to level this up in order to have the damage to actually beat some of the higher tiers. It goes up to tier 25. They showcased a tier 1 and a tier 10 in the live stream. Tier 1 already seemed pretty tough, but the main difference between tier 1 and tier 10 that I could see is that tier 10 is way more tanky, but not necessarily super high damage in terms of you're going to need to ramp up your survivability a ton. You will need high survivability, don't get me wrong, but the key is you're just not going to have enough time to go ahead and, beat the overall Greater Rift or Abattoir of Zir because of the lack of damage. This is pretty nice. Also, you get 1,000 XP, and you can actually see that above me right now. You get 1,000 XP for completing tier 1. This could be applied to all of your other glyphs. So now your ultimate goal when you're starting out a new character, at least in this season, which I actually will be myself, and leveling up your glyphs, is to get to Abattoir of Zir and just finish 1. If you can finish 1, which is still a hard accomplishment, you're going to be able to upgrade all your other glyphs basically instantaneously. That is a ton of XP. You're going to be able to get multiple levels in a single run of Abattoir of Zir, which is going to be fantastic. fantastic. So if you're able to repeat that, that's going to be great. There is one concern that I saw is that in order to grind for some of these sigils, it looks like they're not going to be dropping any sigil powder or anything like that. It did seem like you're going to be able to drop future sigils. So like similar how you finish a nightmare dungeon, you might get a nightmare dungeon tier higher than yours. That seems to be how it works, but we will actually have to see how that actually is in the game. They also have some little bit of notes regarding some other things that they went over in the live stream, things like itemization. They talked about some of the design philosophy behind it. To be honest, though, they really didn't give us anything, and they specifically said season 4 is when the itemization changes are going to come, which was a little bit disappointing for, well, myself and a lot of other people. I know this is something that, well, we're all kind of looking forward to in the future. And then lastly, they went over in some of the Q&A and some of the other things. They're going to make Helltide zones constant, essentially. They're going to make it last for 55 minutes, have a 5-minute downtime, or an hour and 5-minute downtime, and they're going to launch it again. So it's like a 5-minute downtime before the Helltide zone swaps, which is a great change. I think that's how it should be. I don't see a reason for having like this hour of downtime for Helltide zones. It just, kind of messes with people's schedules, and everyone needs to go ahead and get those Forgotten Souls. Then there's also questions about loot filter, the itemization changes, and, more butcher encounters. To be honest, there wasn't really a lot of substance here, but they basically said, like, we would like to add more butcher encounters or like random encounters like that. And of course, loot filter isn't going to come until itemization changes come. So it's not even going to happen until much later. With that said, though, I do want to showcase in this live stream here, I have it pulled up behind us. This is what a tier 10 Abattoir of Zir actually looks like. So you can see behind me, they're running the Ball Lightning build. I would say this is actually a pretty well-built Ball Lightning character. If you're going to compare it to the top tier characters in the game, yeah, maybe not. They don't have a Shaco, right? They don't have the Harlequin Crest or whatever. Yeah, sure. But for your average, character that's able to beat level 100, this is probably what you're going to expect. Keep in mind, when we're considering average, it's not the average player, right? Because you have to beat tier 100, right? Because that is like what level this content is at. So if you're not beating tier 100, then you're not even going to be able to beat this at all or participate in this. And then on top of that, well, for your average player, they're not beating tier 100 anyway. So this content is more so for the hardcore players, but that means that you're going to need to kind of min-max a lot of your stuff in order to really push this to the next level. It looks like the main way to push it, as I said, is to level up that Tears of Blood cliff that you're going to get for doing the Abattoir of Zir, because there are multiplicative damage increases, and it's really, really important that you get that in order to get it done within time. As you can see on the right-hand side, you have the timer there, 10 minutes, little bar, just like your Diablo 3 Greater Rifts, kind of goes through, and if that orange bar, which is the bar that shows you how many kind of progress you've gotten with your monster killing, doesn't match up with the other red bar behind it, well, you're going to go ahead and fail because you're not going to have enough time to kill everything. And so that was the main issue. As you can see, the dev is doing a pretty good job on surviving with the Ball Lightning build here, but the damage just isn't there. And so I think that's going to be one of the biggest bottlenecks, and I think it's really going to come from the Tears of Blood. Really, if you're dying, obviously it's going to extend the amount of time that you have to spend in the Abattoir of Zir, right? Because it's literally done and over with after you die. Or if you're getting really low HP, then you're going to have to back up and maybe heal. So you obviously want to have tanky stats in order to survive and not have to back out a lot, but you need a lot of DPS as well. And I think that's really boils down to just repeating tier 1 over and over again until you get some Abattoir of Zir glyph XP, and then moving on to the tier 2 and then maybe tier 3 slowly but surely. So that's kind of what we got in the live stream today. And of course, I am pretty excited about this. I am going to be starting a new character because I am just, excited to see kind of the sorcerer from my perspective and actually play more of it, because I haven't really gotten to, and the Ball Lightning build has been pretty exciting. So more updates on that. I'll have more videos soon, but let me know what you think about this. It's pretty interesting, I would say. A really, really cool little addition to the game, and it is the biggest content that we've gotten inside the game so far. It is this season only. I imagine they're going to do a different game mode for future seasons. Like, this isn't going to be like, oh, there's never going to be any more on in-game content. They've already talked about like the gauntlet and things like that in the future seasons. But this specific piece of content, yes, people might say it's like greater rifts, and yes, it's like the same thing that we have already had. But I mean, that's what Diablo is. Like, if you ever played Diablo 3 or Diablo 4, like, it's just repeating the same content and killing monsters, but harder. So it's more about min-maxing your gear, making that, kind of the ideal. But if you're not into greater rifts, or if you're not into nightmare dungeons, I have a very, very strong suspicion that you're not going to enjoy Abattoir of Zir. Just keep that in mind. So if you enjoy nightmare dungeons and greater rifts, you'll love it. If you don't like them, then there's no real point in trying to go and participate in the Abattoir of Zir. With that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for a video tomorrow.